wasn't a lot of money, but he bought,
Want me to answer that?
yeah,
Says Helen.
it's what?
It's Helen McGlinchey.
Oh. Hi. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, well, I'll talk to you when I don't have anything important to say, too. Okay, I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. I mean, times were really hard in those days, and for a long time afterwards. I don't think most kids have any idea what it was like, but we didn't mind. We didn't know we were poor. I was born in St. Ignatius, Montana, which is a Indian reservation. My brothers used to always tell me that I was an Indian papoose that was left on the doorstep. And I didn't really believe them, but when I was sitting up night after night, writing this story, putting this book together, I could not find any record in Mom's fairly short story. She talked about everybody that was born but me. And I got to sitting up there and I thought, what if they're right? I've always felt such a closeness with Indians, and I thought, maybe that's right. Me and Bud in the family have always had dark skin. I don't have that dark when I'm not out, but I mean, when I get out in the sun, I get dark, and Bud does really get dark. Somebody used to always remark about that we were Indian, which made Mom really mad, if anybody ever said that. The town was kind of divided. The main town was up on the hill, and then you went down across the Mission Creek, and that was where the big Catholic school and the hospital and everything were. And that's where the Indians would have these powwows. But I remember that as a little kid. I'd have to go to bed, and I'd go open the window, and I could see the flames down there from their fires, and I could hear their drums, and that just fascinated me. I just loved hearing those drums for some reason, and I still do. I still like Indian drums. Mom sent Donald to the store to get some yeast, and I mean, I don't know, it wasn't miles, I guess, but it was a ways. And when he was coming back, this old Indian was sitting on a ware box, and he had a big hat with feathers, and he took it off and laid it on the ware box, and then he went off down into the woods. And Donald went and couldn't resist this hat, brought it home, chopped the feathers off, and was wearing it someplace until he come after. He seen him take it. He come after it. Mom was there alone, and she was scared to death. But he got his hat back, and Donald got into a lot of trouble for taking it and cutting the feathers off. Dad wasn't a man that was ever going to have a lot of money, because he loved to spend it. He would give it away even. I mean, but he just loved to spend money. He didn't have any desire to hang on to it and make something of it, I guess. Well, he was born in a little town called Basalt up by Pocatello, but then his family went to Bear Lake, and that was where some other their grandparents had homesteaded there and that. So Dad used to always tell us that when he proposed to Mom, I think she was 17, I think. He asked her if she'd marry him, or did she want to be left green all her life. Her last name was Lefgren, and he used to always tell us that. Well, she didn't want to be left green all her life, so she married him anyhow. But boy, times were tough. You know, they used to have to go someplace, and they'd come up with a few dollars to have like employment places, and they'd buy a job, and maybe that job would be 100 or 200 miles away, and they didn't have any transportation or any way of getting there, and he would hop freights. They lived a lot of places, and a lot of times when Dad was off looking for a job, well, Mom would, sometimes she'd go home to Ogden to her family. And so Donald was the only one born in Ogden. This is when we left Montana. Now that's pretty, we're pretty straggly. Look at that. Somebody looked and said, I don't believe it. It's the only time I seen all of the Prescott skinny. And we were starving them days. And then this was later when we were in Sunnyside. There's Irma. She's holding Joyce. This is, see why they thought I was an Indian? All these, the pictures, that's Bud and Helen and Shirley and I. All of my pictures, I'm like a little brown Indian. Oh. And here was one of the first pictures of I ever seen of our family. That was, Helen was the baby. That was me, Margie, and Irma. I don't know where she got the sailor suit. Donald and Mom. She wasn't very old, and they had a second son, and his name was Grant. And he's the only one of the family that died as an infant. He died of whooping cough during the big flu epidemic and in the whole country at that time in the early 20s. Yeah.
That was probably pretty hard on your folks, huh?
Yeah, it was. That was something that they never talked about. And to this day, I have this little picture of this white coffin being held by 4 of my uncles, and I can recognize the uncles. And it's looks like in the sagebrush, and the wind's blowing, it looks cold. And that was where Grant was buried. And as far as I know, it was in the Hayburn Cemetery. 1920, Ralph was born, there must have been 25 when he died, I think. But this is my Uncle Jim and my Uncle Walt, and this is my Uncle Ted. He's my aunt's husband. But this is their little grave. And we've never been able to find it. I had an aunt that my dad's younger sister, that done genealogy all her life. And she got me very interested 50 years ago, probably. Then I started in with genealogy, which is important in the church, because you do temple work for the dead, which is, people do temple work when they're alive, but that's a part of our beliefs. You can go through the temple and have baptisms, marriages, and all this done for the people that are deceased. So that got me really, really interested. I wrote and I joined a couple of family genealogy societies. When I got into Dad's, because his family has a lot, all angles, all lines. And I said, did you know your grandmother was married to a polygamist? And he said, yes, and I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about that. They kind of had their separate lives. She was always involved in the church a lot, and he didn't do too much there except go to the parties.
So what happened to where they ended up moving from Montana out to Washington State?
Oh, well, that was in 1940. And, well, in the first place, Irma got married when she was 15. She eloped with Jake. And that was when we were living in that house that had been a funeral parlor, because I always remember, well, I read it in her diary too, but I remembered it. She, there was a upstairs in the main hall, and then there was a door that opened. Actually, what it had been was where they used to take coffins out when it was true. Well, anyhow, she went up there and jumped out. Jake was waiting for her, and she eloped, and Dad was not happy. He about tore the whole state of Montana up looking for him, and he never found him till quite a while later, and they were married, and they were in Whitefish, I think. They went to Whitefish, but then they moved, and while all of the Graffs, the whole herd, moved to Sunnyside. It was not a good place to raise a whole passel of kids if you didn't have like a farm or something, some way. So we moved in to Sunnyside. We had some really rough times in Sunnyside, though. We moved and stayed with Jake and Irma for a while, and then we finally got a house, but on Cemetery Road. It wasn't a bad house, but I mean the first one we got was pretty good, but this old lady that owned it found out there was that many of us, and she got us to move out. She had us move out, so she was supposed to do something, but then she never let us move back in. We ended up the road in a smaller house.
So you spent your one summer in Idaho, and you guys ended up coming back to Sunnyside.
Yeah.
And that's when Grandpa started up a roller rink.
When he come back, it was before the war was over, and he decided he wanted to have his roller skating, and him and Jake, I think, Irma's husband, went to Portland, and they bought all these skates, but they were all clamp skates. They started that roller skating rink, and so I took tickets to start with as they come in the door, and then I would be watching. Well, here this guy come in, and he always had at least 5 girls always come in. They all started skating, but he got a pair of skates on, and he just hit the floor every time he moved. And I remember saying to Dad, check that guy's skates. There must be something wrong with them. He couldn't possibly be falling that much. And there wasn't, and it was a very short time he was one of the best skaters around. But I found out before very long he had a girlfriend, and she was in college. She went to Walla Walla College. Anyhow, I think she come and tried to skate once, and every time she'd get out there, I'd walk by. I'd skate by, and there she'd go flying. And it got pretty serious, and I know one time he kept saying, well, if you was older, I know when he finally talked about asking me to marry him, he said, well, if you were older, I'd ask you to marry him. Well, he did anyhow. We decided to get married when we had some money, and he brought me a ring, and from Walla Walla, and we didn't have anything, but he asked Dad right away, and he said sure. He didn't. Sure. We got married, and so I was talking to Ralph yesterday. I said we probably wouldn't have gotten married if it hadn't been for you, because we didn't have a car. And when he come back, and so we borrowed Ralph's car, and it was the middle of the week, like a Wednesday, and it didn't have a back seat. It was a coupe. It had an apple box. We sat on, and so Irma and I sat on the apple box, and Pete drove it, and Mom sat in front, and we went to Prosser Courthouse, and were married by the Justices of Peace. We went to Yakima and had dinner, And then we thought, well, no, we're not gonna spend money to stay up here. So we went back. That was our big wedding day. Didn't see anybody after that. It took pictures, and that picture that he just posted was taken at Irma's when we got back, and I think Irma took that picture, and it had her clothesline in the background with Jake's overalls on it. The first thing we did, we didn't have any, and we went and packed up and went up with Ralph and Alice up to Natchez and picked apples. And the only one that was the apple picker was Pete. Alice was pregnant with Kathy then, because they were married the year before, the 4th of July. And I remember we stayed in this cabin. I remember that she was real picky about food and stuff. I'd forgot. And for us to have privacy, we each had a corner and a blanket hanging to. I don't remember if we had a bed. But I always remember this man coming, that was a foreman or something of the orchard. He come and looked up at Pete, and I was trying to set my ladder, which I spent all the time doing, and then only going up 3 steps. But he said, "Lady, that man of yours has got a 6-foot reach." He'd get on the top of that ladder, and boy, he was picking more apples than all the rest of us put together. Somebody told him that Hanford was hiring, but you had to join the union, this Teamsters union. They were hiring for truck drivers. And we borrowed Ralph's car, went clear to Pasco that day, and it was late, and he got to Pasco, and they said, yeah, would send him out, but he had to join the union. And they would send him out that day, and it was like $50. We didn't have $50. We went and come flying back. I told him yesterday when I was talking about it, I said, I remember that trip back, and only thing he ever asked of his dad, I think he went and got $50 from his dad, and we flew back there in time for him to get into the union, and he was a real first member of Local 556 was Walla Walla, but he was a charter member, they said, or something. He was new, and he went out to Hanford. I was pregnant with Sherry when we moved, so we lived there way over a year and a half or so, I guess. And then we moved up in the orchard in an apartment up there. And we thought it was nice and everything, but by then we had bought pretty much a house full of furniture. Never bought anything on time, though. Yeah, it was to the day Grandpa died, he never wanted to buy anything on time. May 21st, 49, first child, daughter Sherry, born at Sunnyside Memorial Hospital. October 14th, 51, second child, Daniel, born at Sunnyside Hospital. Our residence was on Factory Road. August 52, moved to Grandview, Washington. August 20th, 1955, we moved to Longview, Washington. June 9th, fourth child, daughter Cindy was born. May 1968, Sherry graduated from Grandview High School. August 1968, moved to Dayton, Washington. June 1973, Ted graduated Dayton High School and began. May 5th, Dan married Susan Nascimento, her parents' home in Starbuck, Dayton. 10th of March, 1985, Dad Burton Prescott died, Yakima, Washington. Boy, my eye is really going. I probably missed. I know I used to write in this all the time. And It seemed like the first time I quit was when Mom died. For some reason, I just couldn't write that. Oh. In 1977, we signed papers, paid $10,000 down on a tract of land in Touchy. November 6th, 7th, first grandkids, Chad born Walla Walla, Matt in Sunnyside. December 8th, Casey in Pullman. Gee, I didn't write much on that page.
Well, that was a busy month for you.
Yeah, it was hard to get around all of them. I just wrote a letter to April, and I started one to Kylie and to Matt. And I said I didn't know how to include you without it, but I just wrote them a letter.
Let me get your glasses off real quick.
Telling them how much all these grandkids and great-grandkids mean to me. I said they're the light of my life. I said my grandkids were, and they just made life worth living. I can't imagine people without kids, but I think every day of the things that we did when with grandkids and stuff, and the things we got. I'm always glad to think that I was able to do more with you guys, and I always thought I was pretty active when it come to doing things. But I was always so glad, and now that I can't do that much, but I enjoy the great grandkids every bit as much, and they're just like a light. And when they come the other day, their parents were saying, "Don't do that, this is grandma's stuff," and I said, "Let them do anything they want to. I'm just here to watch and enjoy them. I'm not gonna discipline them for sure. I mean, but they're always. I don't know how I can tell and what a good job everybody has done. I mean, I think my kids were the best as parents. There wasn't one of them I could fault in any way with what they do.
Grandma, what about any advice for your great grandkids in this crazy new world we live in?
My. Well, just try to be good. Do what's best. Only thing I would change about my grandkids and everything is I don't like the language. That's my only thing is I don't like some of the language. It's always really bothers me to hear certain words. And that's the only thing I would change about any of my grandkids is that not only be good, but always watch your language. I'm very happy with what I have and what life has presented me, and I think I'm very fortunate for all of it, especially the kids. And they just keep getting better all the time. More fun. I think, I don't know, the grandkids were fun, but I think there was more responsibility for grandkids than there are for great-grandkids. You don't seem to have much responsibility. You just enjoy everything they do and think it's funny. Anyhow, I appreciate you doing this, Casey. Love you to death. And all the kids. So, anyhow, I'm happy with the results. It's been really fun.
Good. I love you too.
I just hope it makes sense.